Museums are sites of learning and discovery, but also, at least sometimes, of disagreement and controversy. All museum directors guide their museums through difficulties, but I have the privilege today of speaking with a colleague who's faced the challenge of rebuilding his museum from scratch, and this under the most daunting of circumstances. My name is Chase Robinson, and I serve as director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art. I'm joined by Omara Khan Masoudi, former director of the National Museum of Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a country with an extraordinary cultural heritage that was produced over millennia. It's also endured decades of political, military, and social disorder, including the Soviet invasion in the 1980s, civil war, Taliban rule, and NATO occupation. No individual has worked harder to mitigate the damage to Afghanistan's cultural patrimony than Omara Khan Masoudi. He's played a central role in Afghanistan's political and cultural history, spearheading efforts to protect the museum's collection at no small risk to himself and to his colleagues. Mr. Masoudi, welcome and thank you for joining me.
I'm very happy to be with you. My name is Omara Khan Masoudi. I joined with the museum in 1978. I work over there for 37 years. Since from December 2001, I nominated as the director of the museum. Up to March 2015, for more than 14 years, I was director of the museum. Before that, I worked in different departments of the museum, like prehistory department, exhibition department, registration, and also etc. But for a short time, I was a deputy director. Then in 2015, I retired. Then I started my cooperation with Kabul, UNESCO office in Kabul, up to 2021.
I'd like to take you back, if I may, to the 1960s when you were a student, and you studied history and geography at Kabul University. This was a time in which, of course, Afghanistan was modernizing. There were many fields that you could have entered. You might have entered medicine or engineering, something more practical. Why is it that you chose to study history and geography?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking me. When I entered to the high school in Kabul, this was a professional school. When I graduated, that time we cannot enter to the university. This was a specific faculty. We have to go there. But some of the students and have interest to go to attend it in the concours, after passing of the examination. When they successfully done this examination, they can enter to the social faculties. Successfully I done that. I graduated from the Department of Geography and History. After that, I joined, after 4 years, I was a teacher at Avicenna High School. It was very interesting for me. I like it. But unfortunately, when the April coup or coup d'etat came, after 3 or 4 months, the situation was difficult for me to continue as a teacher. Then I changed. I came from the Ministry of Education to the Ministry of Information and Culture. First of all, I start my work for 4 months at the Kushan International Study Center. Then it was not too much active office. Then I came to the National Museum.
So had you gone to the museum? Had you visited when you were a young man, when you were a pupil?
Usually that time, I studied in that school for 6 years, like a dormitory. Usually we go to visit the National Museum. This museum was a very rich museum, but when we visit the artifacts which was in display, we usually read the caution of each artifact. It was very interesting for me to have a look how these humans are living, how they use this equipment. There was no anything like today we have used it, all these. These people suffer a lot of problem. How they struggle with the nature, how they can't find, how do they provide their food, how they struggle with the climate. This question came to my mind.
Take me back to Afghanistan in the 1960s, perhaps early 1970s. Was this a period of optimism? Did you feel optimistic about Afghanistan's future at that point?
Unfortunately, it was very challenging time because day by day, year by year, the political change in our country, they have negative effect to our activities.
So let's look a little bit at the time frame in which you were operating. As you found yourself in the 80s and 90s, in this context of extraordinary cultural national change, what were some of the challenges that you took on as circumstances were changing so dramatically? How did you feel as if the role of the National Museum had to change? Or did you feel that it was your responsibility to defend the role of the National Museum, to withstand change?
در سال دهه 80 خصوصا در سال 1978 وقتی که من به موزیم کار آغاز کردم، بعد از مدت زمان یک سلسله تغییرات در موزیم و در نظام سیاسی به وجود آمد که اولین اقدام انتقال موزیم از حومه دارلمان به داخل شهر بود. And also I remember in 1978 a group of ministers came to the museum. They have visited the National Museum. Unfortunately, the museum was located on the western part of the Kabul city, very close to the Darlaman Palace. That time, the Darlaman Palace was used by Defense Ministry. As you know, museum should be not very close to the Defense Ministry or military services. But what to do, since this building was used as a museum since from 1931 up to now. When they visited, they told to the director of the museum, the cabinet of the government want to transfer the museum to the center of the city.
And so you began that move in 1978?
Yeah, this time, altogether we were happy. But the director of the museum, that time was Nazar Muhammad Azizi. He is a famous archaeologist. He was director of the museum. He took the decision again, he make a meeting with the staff. He organized some committee to be ready if they order to us to start the moving of the artifacts to the presidential palace. Different committee, registration, packing committee, and also control of how to transfer these pieces over there with the Tawildar. Tawildar is very old system. That time, some people was responsible to keep these artifacts at the National Museum. I remember that time we have 4 Tawildar. That time we don't have the curator system at the museum. We are worried about how to pack this material, how to get this packing of material, because that time the government, we hear this news, they announce us the April Cube will celebrate it in the surrounding of the museum. Museum has a big garden. They order to us, you have to shift these artifacts to the presidential palace.
And why did they make that order?
This
Were they
behind
concerned
of that, we didn't know that time. That is very important. What was behind of that? that Carla Grisman promised us we will support the museum to provide some equipment, especially for packing materials. She promised the director of the museum. Then after a couple of time, in the same times, the director informed the Minister of Information Culture that some ministers come to visit, and Defense Minister told us like this, to move the museum. Definitely the Minister of Information Culture shared this idea with the President. After 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they sent an order. They gave strong order to the museum, you have to move as soon as possible. Within a short time, you have to transfer all these artifacts to the presidential palace.
And how much time were you given?
That time, I think it was 1.5 months, more than 100,000 artifacts
So
that time was stored at the museum.
You were expected to move 100,000 artifacts.
Oh, it was impossible, but I'm very happy the museum staff worked very hard. But Carla Grisman provided all these materials. Every day she came. The director ordered we have this kind of boxes, wooden box, metallic box, and also with them stationery. Everything she provided, carton, some paper for packing of material packing. We request she provide for us. But all this committee worked very hard. Then the committee was responsible with the security, high security system, which was supported by intelligence service, the Ministry of Defense, and also Ministry of Interior Ministry. Just they control how to transfer safely these artifacts over there. When the first car was ready, they announced that the artifacts should be stored at the house of Naeem, Sardar Muhammad Naeem. Sardar Muhammad Naeem was the brother of President Dawood. He has a house in Sharinau, very close to the presidential palace. First, you have to bring these artifacts over there. Then from there, you can bring it to the presidential palace. I remember that time the presidential palace was empty. They gave a part of this presidential palace to the museum. But the president, Hafizah Amin, moved from the presidential palace to Tepe Tajbek. Then we shifted these artifacts, we worked very hard. Within 40 days, we were able to transfer these pieces all these pieces of the National Museum to the Naeem house. We delivered it all in the boxes, put box one by one, all the cabinets, we stored it over there. But there was no space for all this cabinet, exhibition showcases, vitrines. We stored it all these in the yard. We are waiting for that. We will have to move from here to the presidential palace. But after a short time, they celebrated the April coup or coup d'etat at the National Museum area or yard. But that time is finished our transformation of the artifacts. But there was a specific department of Defense Ministry. They occupied the museum building that we called it Mukhabarai Sabit. Mukhabarai Sabit. After a short time, maybe after 4 or 5 months, we saw. It was 4 or 5 days before a lot of helicopter and some tanks.
These were Soviet?
From Soviet, they came to Kabul. In the night, they delivered these military sources in different military compound. That time we didn't know about what will happen. After the end of December 1978, we heard from radio the regime is changed. The Soviet Union forces have against of the president. We hear these tongues are small weapons, the sound even in our home. The radio announced President Karmal came in power. In this war, the museum building was damaged too much. A lot of bullet was attacked, small weapons, big weapons. After a few months, President Karmal ordered to the Ministry of Information and Culture, museum should go back to the National Museum building in Darlaman area.
So all of the objects had been moved to the center of, but they had not been installed in the presidential palace.
No. Unfortunately, when the regime was changed, the new President Karmal, didn't accept to give this presidential palace to the museum. He ordered these artifacts have to go back to the original building in Darlaman area. Himself, he nominated a committee of high-level cultural people to have control of these artifacts, how to shift it from the Sardar Muhammad Naim house to the National Museum. Slowly we packing all these things. In the same time, when we come to visit the museum building, it was damaged. First of all, we request from the government. They repair it very soon. Everything was according to the offer of the museum office. They repaired this building. More than around 1 year, the staff were able to work with the Institute of Archaeology people, members, and also National Museum member. We shifted again these artifacts to the National Museum building. After 1.5 years, it was ready. We put the exhibition, we organized everything. The Prime Minister came. We have a big event for this. That time, the museum was open for the public.
So that was 1981 or 1982?
80, in 1980. In this case, that time we know this decision was very good, gave us a good result. I believe that if the museum was there in the original building, when this high fighting was happened, at the presidential palace, not at the Darlaman area, they killed the President Hamid. Definitely the museum was damaged too much. If the artifacts were there, it was possible to damage, took fire, and also that decision, in my opinion, was, after that we got what happened to that, why the museum was shifted. The reason was that to keep the artifacts safe and how to change this regime. This gave us a good result. We suffered this problem, but we were able to safely shift the artifacts from the National Museum to Sardar Muhammad Naim House in the center of the city and bring it back to the original building. It took time. We spent a lot of money for repairing of the building, have to provide this equipment, but I can promise you, a single pieces were not missing, not broken. We safely shifted all these artifacts back to the National Museum.